In this lesson, we're going to continue solving multi-step inequalities. The best way for you to utilize this video is to, before you see me work out the problem, is to attempt the problem yourself, then play the video and see if you can, check and figure out what mistakes you may have made, okay? So I'm going to encourage you to pause the video before you watch me solve it in between each problem. Before you start, I want to remind you that solving inequalities and solving multi-step equations are similar, but there is one main difference that you have to remember, which is on the last step, don't forget to flip the inequality symbol. Don't forget to flip it if you multiply or divide by a negative number. So again, when you multiply or divide by a negative number in that last step, make sure you flip the symbol. Okay, that's the one difference between solving inequalities and solving equations. So at this time, I want you to pause the video and I want you to attempt number one. All right, here we go. So in number one, we are going to first start by distributing the 4. So we have 4 times x, which is 4x. Then we have 4 times 3, which is 12, and it is a positive 12. And then I'm going to bring everything down, greater than sign, negative 24. Now I want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to get rid of this plus 12, and I'm going to do the inverse operation, which is to subtract 12 on both sides. The 12s are going to cancel, which leaves me 4x, I'm bringing everything down, greater than negative 24 minus 12. That will give me negative 36. Now I'm trying to get the x by itself, so I'm going to get rid of this multiply by 4 by doing the inverse, and I'm going to divide by 4. Again, I want to remind you, whenever a number and a letter are side by side, that is multiplication. Divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4. 4's cancel, and I have x is greater than negative 36 divided by 4 is negative 9. And so at this time, I am going to now, so I have x is greater than negative 9, so I'm going to graph this inequality. And so to graph it, normally you may have the number line already, labeled. This one's not. So I'm going to start by putting negative 9 in the middle, and then I'm going to fill in the rest of the number line. So when we're moving in the negative direction, the numbers they go in this direction. So we go negative 9, negative 10, negative 11. The opposite direction would be negative 8 and negative 7. Okay. Now, in order to graph this inequality, x is greater than negative 9, I'm going to go to negative 9. I'm going to put an open circle, and it is open because it doesn't have greater than or equal to. And then I'm going to shade in the direction of the numbers that would make this inequality true. So saying x is greater than 9. So which direction would make that true? Which numbers are greater? It is the numbers to the right. And that is because when you're dealing with negative numbers, it is the numbers that are closer to 0, which are the greater numbers. So this says negative 8, negative 7, and everything to the right. So that is problem number 1. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to attempt to answer question number 2. All right, here we go. Question number 2. I'm going to distribute that negative 3. So we got negative 3 times x, which is negative 3x. Negative 3 times positive 2 is going to give me a negative 6. Then I'm just going to bring everything down. Now, I'm going to, at this time, I'm going to combine the like terms. I have this x and this negative 3x. Now, when I combine those, again, I want you to even though there's not a 1 there, there is this invisible 1 that's there. So what we're doing when we're combining is we're doing 1 minus 3, which is going to give us a negative 2x. Then I'm just going to bring everything else down. Now, to get the x by itself, I'm going to get rid of the constant first. This minus 6, the inverse operation of minus 6 is plus 6. And I'm going to do that to both sides. The 6's are going to cancel, and I'm left with negative 2x is greater than 10. Now, to get the x by itself, remember, negative 2, this is negative 2 times x. Right? The negative 2 and the x are touching, so that is multiplication. So I have to divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2 on both sides. Now remember, when you multiply or divide by a negative number when solving inequalities, you have to flip the sign. So now that sign is going to be flipped from greater than, and now it is less than. The negative 2's are going to cancel, and now I have x is less than negative 5. And so I have x is less than negative 5. And so now I'm going to graph that. So I'm going to come over to my graph. I'll zoom it in on this one. So I'm going to put the negative 5 here. Then this should be negative 4, negative 3, negative 6, negative 7. I'm going to put a circle. And it is open because it's not equal to. And then, again, my answer was x is less than negative 5. So which numbers would be less than? Well, negative 6 and negative 7, those numbers are less than because they are farther away on the negative side. So I'm going to shade in that direction. All right, that's question number 2. I want you to pause. I want you to attempt to answer question number 3 on your own. All right, here's question number 3. I'm going to distribute the negative 2. So I got negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 4 is a positive 8. And I'm just bringing everything else down. Okay. Now, I'm going to combine like terms. I got 7x and minus 2x. So that's going to give me a positive 5x. Then I'm going to bring everything down. Now, I'm trying to get that x by itself. So I'm going to do the inverse operation. I'm going to subtract 8. The 8's are going to cancel. That leaves me with 5x is less than or equal to negative 10. Now, to get this x by itself, I'm going to divide by 5. Divide by 5. The 5's are going to cancel, and that leaves me x is less than or equal to negative 2. So, to graph that, I'm going to put negative 2 here, negative 1, 0, negative 3, negative 4. I'm going to go to negative 2. I'm going to put a circle. This time the circle is closed because this says also equal to. Okay, so I'm shading in. And then which numbers would make this true where x is less than? So which numbers are less than negative 2? Again, it is in this direction. Again, this is a hint. As long as your x is in the front, this sign always is going to point to the direction that you shade, as long as the variable is in the front. If the variable was flipped around, that wouldn't be the case. All right, that's question number 3. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to attempt to answer question number 4. All right, let's do it. distribute that negative 8, got negative 8x, and a positive 8 because a negative 8 times a negative 1 is a positive minus x, just bringing everything down. Now, I'm going to combine these like terms. I got negative 8x, and then I got this negative x. Again, you can think there's a negative 1, that's an invisible 1. So negative 8 minus 1 is going to give me negative 9x plus 8 less than or equal to negative 28. So then I'm going to get the x by itself, I'm going to subtract do the inverse operation and subtract 8 on both sides. The 8's are going to cancel, leaving me with negative 9x is less than or equal to negative 36. Okay. And so, to get the x by itself, I'm going to divide by a negative 9. Remember, when I divide by a negative number, I got to flip that sign. So the sign is now going to be greater than or equal to, the 9's are going to cancel, and that leaves me x is greater than or equal to negative 36 divided by negative 9 is going to give me a positive 4. So the answer is x is greater than or equal to 4. So I'm going to put the 4 here, and I'm going to fill in the rest of my number line. 5, 6, 3, 2. I'm going to go to the 4. I'm going to put a circle, but this time I'm shading it again. Why? Because that is equal to. And then which numbers would make this true where x is greater than or equal to 4? Well, obviously it is in the right direction. All right. Take a minute. This is going to be the final one that I'm going to walk through. I want you to pause the video. I want you to work through number 5. See if you can solve it on your own. And then replay the video. All right, here we go. I got to get the x's. Now I got x's on both sides. I got to get the x's all on the same side. And I'm going to pick the side that has more x's. So 6x is bigger than negative 2x. So I'm moving the 2x's over here. And I got to do the inverse operation. That cancels. So now I have 8x plus 1 is less, it's less than 9. Subtract 1 on both sides. 1, 8x. Then divide by 8. Divide by 8. 8's cancel. X is less than 1. Put the 1 here. 2, 3, 0, negative 1. Open circle. Less than. Hopefully this has helped you in solving multi-step inequalities.